Welcome to another edition of the Dementia Care Partner Talk Show. Now, here's dementia care expert Teepa Snow and your host, Greg Phelps.
Hello and welcome to the Dementia Care Partners podcast. My name is Greg Phelps. Joining me as usual is dementia care expert Teepa Snow. And Teepa, three little words, visual, verbal, touch. These three words were amongst the first I learned at Positive Approach. Why would I have tucked those away in some dark corner of my brain? And why can these three words affect the outcome of conversations and situations? Bit of a loaded question, isn't it?
Touch. Touch is such a lovely thing. And there's a commercial out there for a medication to deal with the agitation that comes with Alzheimer's. And their very first example of why people need this medication is because someone walks up behind someone. The person in front can't see them, and there's no evidence that they can hear them saying anything, but they come up, they put their hands on the person's shoulders from behind, and the person throws their arms up, and that's why they need this drug. And it's like, well, Greg, let me ask you. So if you were in a dark alley and somebody came up behind and they put their hands on your shoulders and tried to hold you still, what would be your first action?
Well, it ain't going to be pretty. As a former hockey player, I'm probably going to turn around and it'll be a right hook coming at you.
Yeah, well, you would receive medication because clearly it was your also wait a minute, you didn't have dementia, you meant it was just a alley. And so this idea, if I can't see what's happening and I can't figure out what you're saying to me, if you touch me, my brain is designed to protect me. So our rule at Positive Approach, I mean, it is a rule. I have very few rules. This is one of them. I want to show first, and then I say something. And I want to make sure what I'm saying matches what I'm showing. And then and only then, if I get an okay, I mean, it's an okay on those two, that's okay. Then I offer, and it's an offer, touch. So no coming up from behind people with a sweater that you want to put on. No coming up to give them a hug in their wheelchair. No leaning behind them and saying, "Are you done with your dinner? That needs to all stop, because when we touch, for those of you who can't see, visual always is your thumb because it's like an artist's thumb where you're doing, what do I notice? What do I see? Then it's talking. So your hand is going either from your ear to your mouth or going out from your mouth and coming into your ear. And then the third finger, that middle finger, is the one that should be used for touch, and it's complicated. So if I stick it up all by itself, it sort of gives a separate message then. Okay, it's okay that we do things together. Um, so the visual is what people want to notice first. I want to see you before we start. And then I want you to say stuff that I get and back and forth. And then and only then should we be doing stuff. Um, so that's why I'm really thrilled, Greg, quite honestly, that that's one of the first things you picked up on, visual, verbal, touched. Um, so now there are other senses, and I want to be clear about that. There are other ways that data gets in your brain. The back of your brain, the occipital, is huge. I mean, it's a huge part of your brain. The sensory motor is large, it's up on top, but the challenge is it's fed by the visual, and it's also fed by the temporal lobes, which is where your auditory is. Auditory in each half, and then you got to process it to figure out where it's coming from and what does it mean. But vision, it's always coming as long as your eyes are open. So, Greg, if you have your eyes closed and you're asleep, maybe it's different. If you're asleep and your eyes are closed, and I come up and I lean in and I say, "Oh, Greg, good morning," and I'm leaning in real close. What do you think? Is that better? I mean, because
You remember that hockey player?
doggone it, I thought I was doing better because I was using my voice real soft and I was right where you could see me when you opened your eyes.
Right where I
Uh,
could take it too.
Oh, darn. So here's the rule. This is the other rule related to this is you don't go within arm's length unless you've gotten permission, and means Greg needs to see me outside of that distance to start with. Maybe near the door going knock knock to see if he wakes up. If he doesn't, he either didn't hear me or he's too asleep to have processed me. And so if he's asleep, I can't count on his eyes noticing me. I will come in and I'll get down low so that I'm not looming over him because he's that old hockey star. I'll get down low and I'll say, "Hey, Greg," nothing. If I need to, because I know I'm still not getting my message in, I might, if I'm feeling secure, place my hand at his knee, not on his shoulder. Because if I'm touching his shoulder, how close am I?
Oh, you're pretty close to my right hook.
Pretty close. I don't want to pat the back of his hand because if he flips it up, it might startle me and then I might do something untoward. But at the knee, off to the side and at the knee, "Hey, Greg," and I might do a little back and forth tendon touch, and it's flats of the hands, no tips. And notice again, my voice is in that quiet range, not in the "Greg, Greg, Greg, hey, Greg, Greg, it's time to get up, Greg."
That could be annoying after, a couple of
After
times.
once or twice, yeah. So, well, quite honestly, until you look at me and it looks like you're okay with me, our rule is you shouldn't be moving in closer. Because the visual info that you give me back is important as the visual info I give you, because it's a back and forth street. So what's cool is I offer a visual and then you offer me a visual back. If your visual says stay out, well, you don't want me coming closer. That's verbal, but I acknowledge the visual. Yeah. Hey, Greg, coffee?
Can we jump to touch for a minute? Because this
Oh,
was one
yeah. Let's go to touch. Yeah. Yeah.
it sort of took me by surprise, that I shouldn't walk up to somebody who's laying in bed and just put my hand right on their shoulder.
Uh-huh.
Um, had to learn, not
Ah,
through, luckily not through bad experiences, but the
right.
appropriate place to touch people to,
Yeah.
see if they're awake, alive, or,
Yeah.
it's not just, I can't just jump from one to the other. You sort of have to have some planning and some routine in this.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why the second piece of the puzzle is the positive physical approach, because it uses all of that stuff that we now have visual first. So I pause and I go, "Hey, Greg," and my hand is up near my face. Because frankly, I don't know how much you can take in at a time. And I hold it still so you get a chance to see my hand, see my face, and then I make the offer out with a handshake. And because that's a very familiar pattern of touch in the human condition in the US and Canada, I mean, Canada's as bad as we are for shaking hands. Um, then it gives you a chance to realize what I want. I want to touch you. But the touch I'm offering you is a pretty friendly, social, familiar touch. And if you say no, I know, ooh, stay outside the range because he's not ready. If he does shake hands, well, then we've made a connection that allows us to get close enough to touch. But if we go into it like, oh, I need to change his shirt, it's time for him to go down to lunch. And I walk in and I'm saying, "Hey, Greg, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change your shirt. You've got some tomato sauce on that one from breakfast. So tell you what, let me go ahead and get this off of you." And the space it takes me to walk, get the shirt, and come over. And what might you be watching me do?
Well, I'm still kind of stunned from how fast you talked because I wouldn't have understood a word you said.
And at the same time, you're trying to track me because I'm going over to the dresser. I come in, my back is to you while I'm getting the thing out of the dresser. I pull out that thing, and all of a sudden I have a shirt. And I say, "Okay, well, let's get this one off." And the next thing you know, I'm trying to strip your shirt off. I've got a
Do
feeling there may be touch involved, but it's not the one I'm thinking is going to happen.
do care partners sometimes get a little task oriented? Because I,
Mm.
I know that during some of the training we were doing, the goal was to get the person's hand, and sort of got a little fixated on that and realized that the person was messing with me and that really I should have learned how to back off.
That's the tricky part, is really recognizing there's two of us in this interaction. And it's always relationship first and then task. And if our agenda gets in the way, what ends up happening is the person is not up for our agenda and we find we go nowhere. So, yeah, it's really easy to get sucked into wanting to get something done. It's about a task, it's about an
Well, because I
agenda.
have a list of 20
You have a
residents that
list.
I have to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you have a list. I don't. My agenda is different than yours. And so, the only true thing is death and taxes. So it's like, go for it. Let me see you move this immobile object. So I think sometimes it might be about control for some of us who are human beings that like to be in control. And for some people, it's about getting connected. And if you want to take my shirt off, if it means we're connected, ooh, we're connected in a way I didn't know. How exciting. And now, of course, if I'm the one living with dementia, I'm in trouble. I just like, wait a minute, but you're the one that cued me that we were getting undressed. I don't understand. It's like, oh, no, actually, you don't understand. So yeah, I think all too often people get pieces, but not the whole. And that's really the fabric that makes life work better, is when we have a really solid pattern.
Deepa, this is one of the building blocks. So I'm sort of assuming that, oh, dangerous to assume, but I'm assuming that somewhere on your website you have some videos on this.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah, that we devote a lot of energy to this. I mean, many of our courses, like champion courses, care partner support series, a lot of our work, our videos, all involve this idea of, without this building block, relationships are shattered. Understanding of what's about to happen is not understood. And so we get into a lot of trouble, and we blame people living with dementia for being human with limits in impulse control, versus us for not understanding how human brains work and bodies work, and really owning, oh, there's a difference I can make and I'm going to make it. So we work hard to try to make that available to people.
Deepa, thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg.
You've been listening to the Dementia Care Partners podcast, brought to you by Positive Approach to Care. For more information, go to teepasnow.com.